Hey everybody, this is Kid Kash, former ECW World Television Champion, and you're listening to This is Extreme.
Beat me if you can. Survive if I let you.
Cultivating nevermore.
Let the new era begin. The era of the ECW.
Oh my God. This is extreme.
Greetings and welcome, ECW fans, to This is Extreme, the ECW history podcast that dives deep into the history of Extreme Championship Wrestling by interviewing those that were there, associated, worked for, helped, whatever it may be. We'll interview them. We got a great interview on today's show. We have former ECW television champion Kid Kash on this show today. A great interview, over an hour long. Talks about, primarily ECW, but man, David Kash had a great career even outside of ECW, and we talk a little about those things. Some of it may surprise you, right? A lot of people who are primarily familiar with Kid Kash from ECW may not, be aware of some of his non-ECW accomplishments. And he's a great worker, great guy. Had fun talking to him, and hope to talk to him again in the future. One bit of housekeeping, or whatever you want to call it, news that I need to take care of. I don't know if it'll still be happening by the time this is released, but I am having a little trouble with the ECW Pod X account, the Twitter, formerly Twitter. We had a recent post, or whatever you want to call it now. I don't know what you call them. That was, had a lot of likes, a lot of shares. I was following, a lot of people back on that, trying to, network, trying to grow the account or whatever else. But apparently I liked too many in too short a time. They locked the account due to suspicious activity, and I'm having trouble getting it unlocked. I've got, form submissions in to X to try to get it. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know whether they will unlock it, whether I'll be able to do it, whether it's just lost for eternity. I don't know. But as of now, I do not have access to the X account. Don't know what's going to happen with that. If that is your primary means of following us, you may want to follow some of our other outlets on social media. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at ECW Pod. So you might want to follow us there so that you can keep abreast on my posts and everything else, because I'm not sure what's happening with the old X account. So there, just a little bit of news, podcast news right up front. But let's get past that. Let's get on to bigger and better and brighter things and take a quick break. And when we come back, we will have that interview with Kid Kash. So stick around. Be sure to follow This is Extreme on all social media platforms. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for ECW Pod. Be sure to follow us, keep up to date, and join in the discussions. We want to hear your feedback. So find us on all the social media platforms and join the revolution. This is Extreme. All right, and welcome back to This is Extreme. At this time, I'm joined by a former ECW television champion, Kid Kash, or as he's known now, just David Kash. David, how are you?
Doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing very good. I appreciate you making time and talking to us and talking about your time in ECW. Let's start out with a few things. I read that your dad was a boxer when you were a kid, and that you boxed also when you were young. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, my dad was in the Navy. He was he was a Navy SEAL through the Vietnam era, and he did 7 tours. So his last little tour, when he came back, he actually was trying to go back. So he re-signed, and they put him stateside. So he joined the naval boxing team, and from there he got out of the Navy 4 years later, and he signed up for another 4 years. Yeah, so 4 years of the boxing, and then he went to United States Boxing League. It used to be called the USBA. I don't know if anybody ever remembers that, but that was kind of like the amateur, I guess, the NPC to the IFBB.
Yeah.
So he did really well there, and he got him a couple of pro spots and stuff. But I started boxing at the age of 7. and he started me off, and then from there I just kind of joined the YMCA in my local town, and continued boxing from there. Did a lot of amateur, did the teenage Golden Gloves twice, won both of them twice, one in Virginia, one in Maryland. Did martial arts. I didn't exactly play football, baseball, and all that stuff in school, so I kept to my boxing, and then started wrestling in school. Really liked that, and then started transitioning over to some Krav Maga and some Aikido, and from there, of course, it branches out over the years, doing a little bit of Muay Thai, a little bit of Jiu-Jitsu, and things of that. So still do, and
Yeah.
still train, still try to stay healthy at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. And at some point, it says you were trained by Ricky Morton, Tim Horner. How did that happen? How did you run into those guys? Where was that connection made?
In my home, I ran into Tim Horner first in my hometown. Him and the Road Warriors. I was actually working out at the gym, and they were having a local show there at the fairgrounds, and a bunch of the guys from Smoky Mountain Wrestling came, and then there was a couple of other guys, like Terry Funk and the Road Warriors. They came as well. But yeah, we had Killer Kyle and Tim
Mm-hmm.
Horner, and God, let's see, Anthony Michaels, Brian Logan. There was some guys, definitely from the Smoky there. But anyway, that's how I met uh, uh, Tim
Yeah.
first.
Uh-huh.
Just in the dressing room, and we were at the gym, and my most of my youth, so many people thought I looked like Owen Hart, or if it wasn't Owen Hart, it was Brian Pillman. And I was like, okay, so they actually approached me in the gym, and he was like, hey, man, has anybody ever told you look like Owen Hart? And I was like, yeah, all the time. They invited me to the show. Got backstage, and stuff, hung out with the guys pretty much. I didn't even watch the wrestling show. I hung out in the back pretty much the whole entire night. And one of the Road Warriors, Hulk, needed a dip, and he dipped Copenhagen like I did. So he asked me for one, and I gave him my can, and he took pretty much the whole entire can, in one dip.
Yeah, that
And
sounds right.
but they did like 2 or 3 shows that weekend, so I went to the next one, and me and Tim just really hit it off really well. We just had like really great conversation. We didn't even talk wrestling or anything. We just talked, everyday, stuff. I was a pipe welder at that time, and
Mm-hmm.
he wanted to know about my industry, and I was telling him about him, mine, and he was telling me about his, and that. And then Road Warrior Hulk came in to the next show, and he was like, "I was hoping he would be here." And he said, "I need to pay you back. You saved my life yesterday." And he gave me a whole container, which is like,
Ah.
yeah, it was like 12 of those bastards, And I was like, no, I don't need all of that. I only gave you one gift. He goes, no, brother. He goes, I'm a big dipper. So, yeah, you need to take this, because if I ask you anymore, I'll probably take all you got. And which that moment, he remembered, because 10 years later, I saw him down the road, and he instantly remembered me, and
Yeah.
couldn't believe that I'd gotten in the wrestling business, and, that stuff. But Tim is the one who actually kind of like started it, and then there was like a local guy there in my town. But I got Tim's number and all that other stuff. Doug Ward, Marvin Ward, had a little wrestling camp there at that same building. He used to do jobs for WCW,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he was trained by Ivan Koloff
Mm.
back in the day when there was guys that were just trained to be jobbers back in
Right.
the NWA days. He was
Yeah.
one of those guys. Um, I think the story goes he was doing tapings down in Atlanta or something, and they took him off the card and made him a referee. And I guess because he wasn't big enough, really, he was he was my size basically, but no muscle tone at all. Just kind of a heavy set boy, chunky, but he wasn't very tall, or anything. He definitely didn't have the wrestler look or anything like that. So they made him a referee, and he got offended by it, and went home. And I guess him and his dad started their own little wrestling organization. And to be honest with you, the guy did a great job. I mean, when he was being honest,
Yeah.
but he was a good promoter. I mean, for a small town guy like that.
But him and Preston Fitzgerald, got me in the ring like it was like one night, 2 nights maybe.
Mhm.
Just felt what it like to take a bump. Showed me how to hit a rope. And the stuff that they actually showed me in those 2 days wound up being absolutely wrong when I left and went to Tim Horner. But that's how it started. Started with Tim. So I called Tim. It interested me enough to try it anyway.
Uh-huh.
And so I called Tim, and Tim invited me down, and I became good friends with Anthony Michaels and Brian Logan too. So they
Yeah.
did local independent wrestling shows in Johnson City, Morristown, Knoxville, and things like that. So they actually got me on, and I was like, I've never wrestled before. Don't worry about it. We'll guide you. And they did. It wasn't the greatest match ever, but I was very shocked that it turned out the way it did. And from there, that's when I met Ricky Morton, and met him at a local indie show there in Tennessee. And next thing you know, him and I, just like Tim, just really hit it off. I mean, nothing about wrestling. It was
Yeah.
always just conversation. And they liked me because they just looked at me as a normal guy.
Yeah.
Um, and I found out later on, once I got full time into the wrestling business, how they felt, because you go to these shows and you go to all these towns, all these cities, all these buildings and stuff, and the only thing that comes out of most people's mouths is wrestling. That's it. That's all
Yeah.
you talk about the entire time you're on the road. Basically, when you get home, I mean, you think about it. I mean, all your friends think it's cool that you're a pro wrestler, wrestling for ECW and all these other companies, so they want to talk wrestling. So there becomes a little period of your life where you don't really have any conversation about anything else other than wrestling.
Yeah.
And but that's kind of what you need if you're going to succeed. You have to be able to make it part of your entire life,
Yeah.
and
For sure.
to be able to do the shows, to do every single show. Even those ones on Wednesdays that only pay $5,
Yeah.
because you just got to get your name out there. And I did many of those the first couple of years, just doing shows for 5, 10, 15, $20, driving 2, 3, 4, 5 hours for that money. But then Ricky, uh, I don't know, I think, no, what was it? Him and Robert had issues
Hmm.
again. And like they did many, many times over the years.
Hmm. Hmm.
And he just approached me one night in the dressing room, and he was like, "Hey, man," he goes, "How would you like to, do some tag teaming with me?" And I was like, "Absolutely," And so that's kind of how it went. I mean, he could see that I was as green as they come.
Yeah.
And so he was like, "You got talent." He goes, "You just don't know how to put a match together. You got the athleticism. You definitely have the look. You just got to be able to have the psychology and the know-how to read a crowd and put a match together. And I'll show you that." And he did. So first year, I sat in the car, really, just watching all of his matches, carrying his bags, and just whatever he said, I did.
Yeah.
And kind of just one night, we were in that was at Jonesboro, Arkansas, for Burt Prentice. I don't know if you know who he
Hmm.
is,
I do. Yep.
but back then it was called Ozark Mountain Wrestling,
Hmm.
and
Yep.
Greg Valentine was on the show. He no showed, couldn't make it or something like that, so they needed a stand-in, and Ricky automatically threw my name in there. I got in there, had a good, really really good match, and they impressed, and that's where it started. And then from right then there, uh, the very next week, he had me and him tag teaming together. And then we went on as the New Rock and Roll Express for probably about 2.5 years. And of course, Robert came back into the picture, and we did some 6-man tags here and there. And then I would go down to Florida and tag with Robert from time to time. And then it was just time for me to go out on my own.
Yeah. I mean, there is not many guys better to learn from than Ricky Morton.
Oh
Just
God,
to watch. I mean, probably, if not the greatest, one of the top 3 greatest sellers of all time. I
oh,
mean,
absolutely. I mean, I felt I
him
was.
and Ricky Steamboat, maybe, but
Well, I had to hit the jackpot in that circumstance, because I mean, it was not only just Rick. Ricky was the main guy. Who
hmm
gave me all the information, things like that. But I was also trained by Robert, I
Mm.
was also trained by Jerry the King Lawler, the Honky Tonk Man, the Jimmy Hart, because these are the guys that would ride with us to the shows. I mean, we would pick guys that we would go to Memphis and do Memphis TV there, and then we would all gather up in the car together and go do the house shows for Memphis. We would go to Jonesboro, Arkansas, Pocahontas, Arkansas, Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Just keep just hitting the circuit for them, and then back to Memphis for the Mid South Coliseum on the last night of the week for the big show.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I was in the car with the Moondogs. I was in the car with, like I said, the Honky Tonk Man, Sid Vicious. I mean, I shared many, many, many rides with all these guys for probably a total of about 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And just the information, and everybody's different, and that's what Ricky always told me. He said, don't just wrestle the way I teach you. He says, get your information from as many people as you can, and whatever is fitting you the best and fits your character, fits your look, fits your style, then that's what you run with.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I just picked a little bit of everybody. And if you ever watch me, I got some Dynamite Kid in me. I got some Shawn Michaels in me. I got Ricky Morton in me. A little bit of Ricky Steamboat in me. Some of Bret Hart in me. So I throw it out there. I like that aggressive style. So the era that I came into was still a little bit on the aggressive side, where really got hit. You didn't get hit with everything, but you got hit. And you knew that it was there.
Yeah.
You walked out of the ring with a black eye from time to time. You walked out of the ring with a busted nose and a bloody lip, or just something, cracked rib, just because it was stiff. And
Yeah.
and to me, that was the best way for me to sell. Uh, if you want me to sell like Ricky Morton, I can, but I need you to lay it in, and
Yeah.
then I can sell like I'm going to the electric chair.
Yeah.
You know,
And that's, I think that might be part of the reason why you excelled there in ECW, why you worked in ECW, because I've always thought ECW it's just Memphis just turned up a few notches, and it's that, I mean, obviously, Paul Heyman had that Memphis style, came through Memphis. Obviously, Eddie Gilbert booked early ECW, came through
yeah.
Memphis. I think they
Well,
took what Memphis was doing and just brought it to the new era, brought it to the new decade.
they did, but they didn't let the boys know it. They wanted the boys
Right.
to have their own identities and stuff. So the boys was whenever I was there, I had two runs with them. One in like late '95 to about very early '97, and then I broke my leg real bad. I
Yeah.
had to take about a year off, a little over a year. And then
Yeah.
when I went back in like '98, late '98, it was about to be '99. And but everybody was still about the Japanese and the Mexico style
Yeah.
up there. So the extreme Japanese style wrestling was still pretty big, and the extreme high flying of the Mexicans and stuff like that. So when I went there, I noticed that for me to stand out, that I had to pull the South out. I can do every single one of the moves that every single of these people are doing. There's not a move in there that I couldn't do. There's not a hold that I couldn't put on. But uh, I noticed that their selling was a lot like Japan.
Mm-hmm.
They would take a couple of chair shots, and when the guy turns his back to cheer the crowd or boo the crowd or whatever, by the time he turns back around, the guy's up.
Yep.
So I wanted to change that for my style. I wanted to stand out, and luckily, my style did stand out enough to where Paul was like, "There's something different about this kid." So he had a conversation with me after my first night there, and he was like, "Definitely tell you're from the South." He goes, the guy only kicked you on a lockup and you sold it like, the guy just, was about to make you puke. And I was like, well, the guy is like logically 6 foot fucking 9. He's like 280 pounds. I'm 5'9" and I'm only 175 pounds. So I kind of do what makes logic, makes the best logic, and he really enjoyed that. And he was like that, keep doing what you're doing. So we did
Yeah.
that for a couple of months. And one night I went into Jim Thorpe up in Pennsylvania. And Raven was putting on a class. in the dressing room with all the young guys like Dorian, Roadkill, Chetty, all the guys, Nova, all these guys. And what they were doing is they were watching because of the matches that I had been having, and plus I had one the week before with Mike also.
Yeah.
And Mike wasn't even used to my selling because he literally just got off the plane from Japan. So he wasn't used to people selling for him. He was used to just go, 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 go. And same scenario, we go to lock up. He boots me. This guy's 6'9", 300 pounds. I sold it like I was going to the electric chair. I
Yep.
mean, it was just couldn't breathe. I was throwing up, that kind of thing, the whole
Yep.
act and stuff. And then throughout the whole entire match, I mean, what am I going to do to this guy other than slip, dodge and slip under and do some drop kicks to the legs and then maybe a couple of high spots. That's about it.
Yep.
So I wanted to get his size over, but I also wanted it to be still competitive and stuff. So everything this man did to me, I mean, everything, I just sold it like it was, my last minute in the match.
Yeah.
And Brian, God, what was his name? Fuck. Big Brian. Damn. Can't remember his last name. He's one of my good friends. Damn. Big Brian. He had the long hair.
Oh, you talking about me, Blue Meanie?
No,
No.
not Brian.
Not that Brian, huh?
Not that Brian. They called him the Doe. He was with. He actually came with the Harris Boys, a couple of little tag team, little triple man group there. Biker group. Remember the Harris
Brian.
Boys?
Yeah, Brian Adams.
Brian. No, it's not Brian Adams, is it?
Crush.
No, it wasn't Crush. It was Brian. He was in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and he did
Brian Lee.
Brian Lee. God,
Prime time. Yeah, there you go.
I can't believe. God drove. I can't tell you how many miles we drove up the road together. I couldn't remember his last name. But me and Brian were very close, and Brian was a very big guy, just like Mike Awesome. And so we come through the dressing room, and I walk through it. He just grabs it. He goes, "Are you all right, man?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Why? And he goes, "Dude, listen, all he goes aside, that dude beat the fuck out of you, man. Or just be serious. Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Dude, I was selling." And he goes, "That wasn't just selling." And I was like, "No, I was selling." He goes, "That motherfucker was shooting on you, man." I was like, "No, he really wasn't. It was all selling." So here comes Mike through the curtain and everything. And he was about ready. He was ready to fight Mike. And he's like, "Man, that's fucked up, man. You don't be doing that." He goes, "What are you talking about, man?" He said, "It blew me away." He goes, "If you notice," he goes, "I stopped a few times because I didn't know, I didn't know what to do because he was selling." And he goes, "So you were just selling that whole thing?" And I was like, "Everything was sold, man. I swear to God."
Yeah.
Well, Paul, of course, just thought that was the greatest shit ever. He was like, "You're the first dude that has ever made him look like an absolute fucking monster." And, really got it over.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Well, he's been wrestling Spike Dudley." And he goes, "Yeah, but Spike, even Spike hasn't been getting him over like that, because Spike fires back so much. He just kept firing back and firing back and firing back. I didn't. I was an old school Southern match. I had my spots whenever I had my whole spots. With the rest of the whole match, he just beat me and threw me all over the fucking place, and I took it. And so, yeah, because of that, Paul was like, "That's just that right there, just put him up on another level, as a monster." So he had Raven, and Raven got together, and so they were back there watching like old Memphis and old UWF tapes from John Tatum, Ted DiBiase, back in the day, Dr. That's Steve Williams, and Austin Idol, how everybody sold. And I was standing there, and he looked at me, he said, "You don't need to be here." I was like, "Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to intrude." And he goes, "No, you're not intruding." He goes, "But you're the reason why we're here, so you don't even need to be here." And I was like, "Oh, okay, well, I'll see you guys." But yeah, so that was my style coming in. I tried to pull out the modern day Southern, storytelling, selling with the modern day high flying and more extreme style of wrestling. Combine it together.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, a lot of people don't realize that you had that little run from 95 to 97 in ECW. A lot of people forget that.
Yeah.
And during the time, you worked under all kinds of names, right? David Jericho, David Tyler Morton, Davey Pisano, all these different things. And that almost became your gimmick, right? The name change,
it was.
where the crowd was chanting, "Oh, what's your name?" What? How
Yeah.
did was that just a natural kind of development
Well,
because of the name thing, or?
well, I came up with that. My name was David Jericho back in
Uh huh.
1990.
Right.
Me and Ricky got it from driving down the interstate in Tennessee and looked over and saw a Jericho Temple Shriners building. And we were just going through names. And I just said the word Jericho. And he's like, Jericho, David Jericho, Jericho Cash. He just, and then he says, I like David Jericho. That's the one we use. And then what, about 2 years later, 3 years later, that's when Chris started coming out on the scene,
Yeah.
Chris Jericho.
Hmm.
But yeah, so that was my name up until I went to work up there. And then, so I think Chris Jericho had just left there and he was on his way to WCW or something, and or back to Japan or somewhere like that. So he literally had just left the company. And when I got there, they had me do David Jericho like the first couple of weeks, but then they said we need to change your name, and I'm like, all right. So we sat down and thought about it, and I was like, Davey Morton. And a lot of people think that me and Ricky are father and son.
Hmm.
And he goes, huh? He goes, no. He goes, no. He goes, in my opinion, you're better than Ricky, but in a much different way. And I'm like, okay. So my son's name was Tyler.
Hmm.
And so he was like, how about Davy Tyler? That sounds good. Sounds good. Problem is, that Sandman's son Tyler is in an angle with Raven.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. I was like, well, I'll tell you what, I'll just leave that up to you. So I went to the ring that night, and when I came out to the ring, they called me Davy Morton Tyler Jericho. And so we did that for a couple of good months. And one night they put me with Little Guido.
Hmm.
And so after the match, and we had a really good match. We meshed really well, and we actually was a really good tag team. And so we had good timing and everything. We read each other well. Paul was like, I think I want you guys to keep this around for a little bit. And we're like, okay. Came back the following week, and when they called me out to the ring, I was Davey Morton, Tyler Jericho, Paisan. So, and then that's when the crowd was like, "What's your name? What's your name?" But yeah, but and it was funny is they put it on a shirt. They were
Uh,
going to put Davey Morton, Tyler Jericho on the front, and then put "What's your name" on the back. And
yeah.
so, but then I broke my leg. Yeah, I wound up breaking my legs, tore my knee out, everything. I had to have knee replacement, and, metal rod put in my leg and ankle.
Yeah, that I did that happen at that you worked some TV tapings at WWE. Did that happen there?
No, did that was what happened there was I broke both ankles on a Hurricanrana in a tag team match
Oh, okay.
at the UTC Arena. Yeah, we did. It was me and Papi Chulo.
Hmm.
They had interest in me back then. I've been with the WWE so many damn times over the years. Coming, they would call me up. They'd be like, "Hey, we're coming to your area. Would you like to, come and hang out?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." I go down. I would talk to them. We'd have serious conversation. They put me on the show. They pay me, send me home. They would do that for years. People, here they come again. But this one particular time, it was like a 4-day run through Tennessee. And the last night was at the UTC Arena in Chattanooga. And we did a great night in Johnson City, did a great night in Nashville, did a great night in Memphis, and we were having a good night there in Chattanooga. But we did it. We wrestled too much. Yeah, two. Was it 2 6? No, it was Brian Christopher and
Yes,
what's his
Scott
name,
Taylor.
Scotty Taylor.
Yeah.
So we went to do the Hurricanranas off the top rope from post to post, and Scotty, for some reason, didn't let go of my legs, and so when we went over into the flip, when we came down, he landed pretty much head and shoulders on the back of both of my ankles. And so he flattened both of them, and I couldn't. I mean, luckily we were going home at that point. We were supposed to win, and but what happened was Brian saw that I was really, really hurt. So because I was supposed to set, Scotty up for the move, and then here comes Papi Chulo with his finish, and so here I go to pick him up and as soon as I got his weight in my hands, both of my ankles just curved over and I just fell. So Brian had the ring general that he was. He ran over there real quick. He kicked me a couple of times, picked me up, slammed me, and then did the Alabama Jam.
Mm-hmm.
And that was 1, 2, 3. So then I got in the car. I walked all the way back. I would not have anybody carry me. I walked all the way back to the back. Mick Foley and Dustin Rhodes had ice packs in a chair waiting on me. They were very, very cool two guys, and I sat there and iced my stuff down till I could, till the swelling went down a little bit. Got my clothes on, got my money, and then I looked up, and there was a flight of stairs all the way up to the parking lot.
Oh no.
Yeah, but everybody was kind of standing there watching me too, and I just, with my pride and everything, I was like, no way. No. Luckily, I had a guardrail, so I used the handrail all the way up. And Farouk, Ron Simmons was at the top. He goes, "Hey, brother," he goes, "Great job, man. Don't sell that shit. Don't sell that shit." And then whenever I came through the curtain, and they gave me the ice packs, Dustin Rhodes told me the same thing. He says, "You're hurt, aren't you?" I was like, "Yeah, fucked up both of my ankles." He goes, "Oh shit." He goes, "Don't sell it, brother. Don't sell it. Just keep moving." I'm like, "Okay." That's what I did. I didn't sell. I didn't complain to anybody. I didn't say anything to anybody. The guys that were watching the monitor knew, and I'm sure Vince knew too. But as I started walking up the stairs, Vince and oh god, what I can't remember that guy's name. Blackjack Lansing. Yeah, they came. Yeah, they came walking by me, and they stopped me, and he goes, "You want to get some help up them stairs?" And I was like, "No, sir, I got it." And he was like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, I'm very sure I got this." And I was like, "Thank you so much for having me." And he goes, "Thank you so much for your hard work." And so I just walked on up. They kind of stood there and watched me for about a few seconds, and then they kept on walking. But I got to the car in the parking lot. Uh, I drove to God. Where was I? I was in Chattanooga. I think I got to Knoxville, and I lived in Johnson City, and I was running out of gas, so I had to go get gas. So I had to get out of the car with 2 broken ankles, walk into the store, pay for my gas, walk back out, and then pump the gas. And I still hadn't even changed out of my wrestling outfit yet. So yeah, it took me close to 50 minutes to get out of the car, walk with no help into the gas station, pay for it. I think I got a drink or two and something to munch on, Then I just one step at a time, just one step, one step, one step, one step. Yeah. And then just got in the car and drove the rest of the way. And when I got home, I called my girlfriend at our apartment, and I was like, "Hey," I was like, "You need to come out and get me." I got home at like 3 o'clock in the morning. She was already in bed, hours ago and stuff, So, yeah, so she had to come out and help me out of the car, and drag me up to the stairs, get me in. Yeah, got me in bed. Next morning, I woke up and both of my ankles were so swollen I couldn't even see my ankle bones. So of course we went to the hospital. Come to find out, one was broken and the other one was like extremely strained. So, but luckily I had from breaking my leg really bad. I had access to an air cast.
Oh,
and yes, so I kept that air cast after the broken leg, and I used it. I put that son of a bitch on, and I put it down in my boot, and then the other leg I would just tape so damn tight that you couldn't even bend the foot, And and that no joke, I never took a night off.
Oh man, that's
when I
amazing.
when I broke my leg and had my knee replaced and the metal rod put in, I was out a total of 8 weeks. That because I found out that air cast was so supportive that once you put that thing on and pump it up, it's like you can run.
Yeah.
You can literally, you can't run a sprint or anything like that, but you can run and you can at least hit the ropes.
Yeah.
And man, I used that thing, and so 8 weeks after I broke my leg, had surgery, knee replacement, all that shit, metal rod putting in, pins and screws in my ankle, I was back in the ring.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah, tagging with Ricky. Because Ricky called me up. He's like, "Hey, you need to make some money." And I was like, "Yeah, you damn right I do." He goes, "Well, come on." He goes, Well, let's tag team and I'll do all the work. And I'm like, okay. I was like,
Yeah.
that sounds fair since I did all the damn work when we were tagging and you just stood there holding up the ring post. You know, he made the hot
Yeah.
tag. I did the whole work. I'd start the match and the whole match, and then I would hot tag to him, and then he would finish the match up. Like he had probably about 2 minutes of work, and then that was it.
Oh, he's playing Robert Gibson, wasn't he? He was.
Oh yeah, he was, and he was making more. Yeah, he was making $500, and I was only making 100. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you went back to ECW then in 1999, and this is the run most people know you for, and obviously from ECW, and you came in as Kid Kash, and obviously that's obviously a nod to Kid Rock. What was Paul Heyman? I mean, did he look at you and think you look like Kid Rock? Was he just a fan of Kid Rock? I know Kid Rock was hot that time, but
Well,
where'd that come about?
I didn't even know who Kid Rock was. I'm. If anybody who really knows me truly knows that I'm a heavy metal kind of guy. I mean,
Yep.
I've listened to heavy metal my entire life. I even like that Scandinavian metal, kind
Yeah,
of
there you
stuff.
go.
So,
Yeah.
so rap was one thing that I was definitely not into.
Yeah.
And but what happened with that is like I actually came back in '98. They just didn't do any TV with me for like God months because the name they were still trying to come up with because I went back to using the name David Jericho whenever I got hurt. So yeah, from there, they were like, okay, well, we can't use Jericho and everything. So I just did a bunch of reintroduction to the crowd matches, like a lot of dark matches, just getting reintroduced to the crowd so they remembered my face anyway.
Right.
So we went to. No, I was still Davey. No, yeah, that's right. They brought me back in still as Davey Morton Tyler Jericho.
Okay.
Yeah, they brought me. Yeah, I remember it's like 4 or 5 matches. I know that they were still calling me out David Morton Tyler Jericho, but we were in Poughkeepsie, New York, and that they used to do the production of that show in Paul's basement.
Right. Correct. Yep.
Now we're talking about the '90s now. Okay,
Yeah.
so no up to date, technology here. So they still use the 2 VCRs and the 2 VHS tapes. Remember how they used to do that?
Yep.
You would,
Yep.
film, record one using another. Well,
Yep.
usually whenever that happened, you had to have your TV on a certain channel. Well, with that, they had theirs tuned into MTV. So I did a match. I did a match. What was it? The ECW Arena against Easy Money. And that was the night they really started kind of pushing me a little bit right there. They were like, this guy's a standout. I did this Hurricanrana. We call it the Rana bomb. He goes to power bomb me off the top ropes, then I cut a Hurricanrana in the middle of the ring, and that's what I used to pin him with. So after that match, I was the last match. We were actually the main event on that show. So at the end of the match, I stood up on the ropes and did the whole hands in the air thing. And my hair was in my face. I had really long hair back then. And my hair was all up in my face and everything like that. So right at the end of that, the video cut off because that was the end of the tape. Well, when that happened, the MTV kicked on, and it was Kid Rock singing that song "Cowboy."
Right.
He was it was a down shot of him, kind of the same way that they did me, but mine was more of an on, straight ahead shot. His was a little bit more of a down where he was looking up into the camera, and Joey Styles looked over and says, "That's fucking David Cash," and they was like, "God damn, they look a lot alike, don't they?" And they was like, "Yeah, they do." So they actually rewound it a few times just to see the comparison, and they was like, "Damn, those two guys look just alike." And so next thing you know, I came back to Poughkeepsie. We were sitting there talking and chilling before the show, and Tommy Dreamer comes walking through our little crowd saying hello to everybody. And he was like, "Hello, hello, David Cash. How are you?" And I was like, "Fine." And so he walks by me and he stops and he turns around and goes, by the way, you are no longer Davey Morton Tyler Jericho. I was like, "I'm not." And he goes, "No." And I was like, "Who am I now?" He goes, "You are now Kid Cash." And I was like, "Okay." And he goes, "So we talked about it, and you should go to like Hot Topic or something like that and get you some like kind of baggy pants where your underwear shows, and maybe find you a fedora or something, to wear, and something to look like Kid Rock. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So he
Who the
walks
hell's
away,
Kid
and I'm
Rock?
like, who the fuck is Kid Rock? And everybody's like, you don't know who Kid Rock is? I was like, no, I don't know who the fuck Kid Rock is. So Jason Knight was a very good friend of mine back then. He pulls me to the side. He takes me right outside to their car, and he was like, "This is Kid Rock." So he already had the tape in it and everything. It was like the 8-track tape,
Yeah.
not the 8-track, but the cassette tape,
Yeah, cassette.
Yeah, so he's playing it and everything, and I'm like, "Bob with the bada bang, the bang, ding," and I was like, "Okay, that sounds pretty cool. That's not bad, And I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, whatever." It's like, "What's this guy look like?" So they showed me pictures of him and everything, and I was like, "Damn." I was like, "Well, we do kind of look a little bit alike, but I don't know." I was like, "I'm older than he is, so I guess he looks like me." you know,
Yeah, there you go.
so yeah, so that's how that all started. Very next week, when we went home, I went to Hot Topic at the mall, and I bought some black pleathery baggy pants, and I bought some white boxer shorts, and I had my girlfriend embroider Kid Kash in the waistline of them. And then
That's
I just bought me a couple of cool shirts, and went and bought a fedora. No, I didn't buy a fedora. I remember Chili Willie gave me one.
oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, Chili Willie was a good friend of mine from back in
Mm,
the North Carolina days. So
yeah.
he wore a fedora, and he had like 2 or 3 of them. So he brought one for me there, and uh, that's where that came from.
And that's
Very next
crazy.
week.
That's crazy how stuff like that works out sometimes. Just fluke stuff.
Yeah.
And it's what you're most known for probably now. That's wild. And there's a whole story about you and I don't even know how you say it. Bo Dupe, however you say it.
Bowed up, yeah.
Yeah, Bo Dupe. Where he broke your jaw. And
Yes.
you already had some. I think you already had heat with him because being a little stiff and everything else. And tell me all about that between you and Bo.
Well, that was the problem, and it wasn't just me. It was a lot of people that
Right.
he was just young. He was a young guy, but he was huge. He was a huge man,
Yeah.
and he's about 300 pounds. And but he would get so jacked up, and he would just not that he meant to hurt anybody. You knew that he didn't mean to, because he's just such an innocent guy. But damn, he would hurt you, man. I mean, that guy would like give you a fucking power slam and just crush you. Uh, but we had a set up for the pay-per-view. We were having in Birmingham, Alabama, and um, it was me and Nova. Me and Nova were a tag team at this point, and Chetty was still in our corner. He had hurt his back really bad, and so he couldn't wrestle. But we were wrestling Danny Dorn and Roadkill, and then Simon Diamond and Joe. What the fuck was his ring name? Joe Dorgan. Shit,
Who's that?
Johnny Swinger.
Oh yeah, Johnny Swinger. Yeah.
Yeah, Johnny Swinger. So it was like a 4-way tag.
Mhm.
We were setting up, and the Dups were trying to get into that tag team match. Supposedly on the TV version of it.
Yeah.
So they were going to do a run in on one of our matches we had in Atlanta, and but the deal was they were just going to run in and just clobber us and throw us out. Everybody. There was no extra moves involved or anything like that. It was just clobber, throw out, clobber, throw out. And then they were going to get on the microphone and talk some shit, and then that was it. Okay. So, but what happened was they come in, they clobber me first, and then they clobber Nova. Well, they throw Nova out, they throw Dorian out, they throw Roadkill out, and they throw everybody else out. But next thing you know, I'm thinking, okay, well, I guess I better throw myself out. So I started rolling towards the ropes, and dude grabs me, picks me up, and he fucking just drives me through the mat with a slam. And then about that time, here comes Marty over, what's his name, off the top ropes, and he was doing a frog splash. Well, the problem was he was a very long man. He was a very long guy.
Yeah.
So when he did that extra little pump in the air, man, it just extended him out. Well, his knees come crashing down into the side of my face and broke my jaw in 2 places.
So I knew something was wrong because it just didn't, my bite wasn't right, you
Yeah.
know, and I heard something pop, but it didn't hurt. There was no pain involved at all until like hours later. Um, but yeah, I was like, something's just not right here. And I knew that he had broken my jaw because my teeth weren't lining up right. And, and I couldn't really talk. I was talking like, talking like, because I couldn't move my jaw.
Yeah.
And I just all hell flew through. I just like, man, I'm gonna fuck this motherfucker, man. So they get to the back, and he's already getting chewed out by Tommy Dreamer and Paul Heyman. Um, but whenever you got the trucks and the TV and stuff, you got all those connections and cables and stuff, that go from the truck to the satellite to the
Hmm.
to the power boards and all that stuff. Really big, wire, really really big cable, and the connectors are really heavy. That really heavy fire retardant plastic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when they pigtail them in and they plug them in, I was walking back through there, and Nova was like, Davy, man, calm down, Davy, calm down." I was like, fuck this motherfucker. I'm tired of this son of a bitch fucking hurting everybody, and I was just like, fuck this shit. And I just seen one of the big boxes, and seen that on top of it. I just grabbed it, and whenever I walked through the curtain, man, I walked right up to him and I cracked him as hard as I could with that damn thing. And I tried to get a couple more shots in it, but of course, it got broken up immediately and stuff. But yeah, he felt bad about it, but and I understand that he felt bad about it. But we had been complaining to him like for months and months, like, dude, calm the fuck down.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, this is work. This is a work. I like it stiff, but I don't like to be hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, he did a spine buster on me, and it literally ruptured my fucking intestinal tract.
Jeez.
It did. It didn't rupture. What it did, it twisted my intestinals around each other, so they overlapped. I had to go to a deep tissue massage parlor for like 3 days straight when I got home because I couldn't eat anything. I mean, every time I tried to eat, I would get a bite in, and I just couldn't eat another bite. And so yeah, they had to massage my intestines back in line.
Wow.
So yeah. So that was the reason why we had so much heat. It was just the guy was just so fucking careless whenever he got like in that moment. He would that adrenaline would fly, and he just didn't know how to control it. But he was hurting a lot of people, and not just me, but he was hurting other people too.
Yeah. Yeah. But like you said, you broke the jaw, but man, you like with your leg, man, you didn't miss any bookings.
I
You
didn't
didn't.
miss a night. I
No.
wrestled the very next night. I went that night after the show, and went to 4 different hospitals. There was a flu epidemic that going around down there that was killing people,
Yeah.
and so they didn't consider a broken jaw a life threatening issue.
Yeah.
So they gave me some medicine, sent me home with a couple of numbers to a couple of orthopedic surgeons. I called them through the night, and then at about I don't know, probably about 5 o'clock in the morning, I got a call back. I had to sit up in the bed because I couldn't lay down, because
Hmm.
I was still bleeding a little bit. And so I had to sit up and fall asleep. Next thing you know, the phone rang. Talked to the guy. He said, if you can get to Marietta in about an hour, then I'll work on you before my clients come
Hmm.
in. I'm like, okay, cool. He goes, you just got to sign me a couple of 8x10s and take a couple of pictures. I was like, not a problem, no
Yeah.
problem. So I went up there. I mean, he had a lot of. He'd worked on a couple of. He had worked on Diamond Dallas Page, Scott Steiner, Rick Steiner. So he had their pictures up with them and everything like that.
Yeah.
So I got there. He hooked me right up, fixed my jaw. Didn't even charge me.
Man.
Yeah, he wired my jaw shut right there, man. Wired it shut, got it in place. Signed him a couple autographs. Gave me 2 prescriptions of liquid morphine, and I went back to the hotel, called a nap, woke up, took a shower, pulled all that bloody cotton out of my face and my jaw and everything. I hooked up with Jerry Lynn. We drove to Cornelia, Georgia, and wrestled an independent wrestling show for Bill Barron's.
Uh-huh. Right.
Yeah. So after that show was over with, we came back to Atlanta. Very next morning, I drove all the way from Atlanta to Birmingham, Alabama, and we did the pay-per-view. And then from there, I drove all the way back to Johnson City, Tennessee.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
Not, I mean, yeah, man, that's crazy. Obviously, one of your highlights in ECW was it had to be when you won the television title.
Yeah.
You beat Rhino. You held it for a few weeks. Uh, how did you find out? What did you know? Was it building to that you were going to have a little short run with the title? Did you find out that day?
Actually, we held the title for a couple of months because I didn't lose
Right,
it. Yeah, till like February of the next year. I won it late of the year before, and
right,
then I
yeah,
didn't lose it until like February of the next year because we were going through the Christmas vacation and all that stuff.
yeah.
But no, well, they told me that night, and it stemmed from where I broke my jaw. When I
Okay,
broke my jaw, they were just so fucking. They just impressed Paul so fucking much that he was just like amazed that I didn't. I took no nights off, and I basically threatened him to quit my job if he didn't put me on the pay per view after taking me off of it. And yeah, and he didn't already taken me off, and I already had a replacement, but I showed up. And I told him, I was like, I'm here to work, man. He goes, you're fucking hurt. And I'm like, I'm here to fucking work. You don't work me, I quit. And he was like, wow, okay. So that, and then it wasn't, I think it was a month later, my grandmother, who was the one who raised me, my whole adolescent life, through my
hmm,
teenage years and everything like that, I graduated, but yeah, she died while I was on the road.
no,
And so when I got to the building, I found out. And Paul was like, we got somebody going to take you straight to the airport. We're going to fly you out." And I was like, "Why?" And he was like, "You got to be home for your family." And I was like, "She's dead." And he goes, "Yeah, no, you got to, you got to get home." And I was like, "They're not going to bury her or even have a family night till probably Monday or Tuesday of next week." And he was like, "Okay." And I was like, I'm going to stay here and work." And that just impressed him. Hell, it even made him cry.
yeah,
He teared up and he was like, "Are you serious?" And I was like, "I'm very serious. There's nothing I can do. What can I do? There's nothing. She's dead, you know, and I'm here to work. Let's work." And then right after that, I mean, it was like the very next week, we were at the Hammerstein Ballroom, and he was going and laying out the show and everything with everybody. And then the next thing you know, he got tired of my little spot. I was wrestling Rhino, and then it went from being a whole lot more than what it was earlier that day to me winning the title, and then I was like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. And I said, I even told him, I was like, you don't have to put the title on because you feel sorry for me. And he laughed his ass off. He goes, no, he goes, I'm putting the title on because I'm fucking impressed by you.
yeah,
I was like, okay, that's all I need to hear right there. He goes, man, he goes, you're one of the few people I've ever met in this entire sport that can be hurt, not only physically, but mentally. And you keep your mind on your job and you do your job to the best of your ability and you have no flaws doing it. And he's like, I gotta reward that. And I
yeah,
was like, well, thank you,
yeah. I got to think, man, through all that, losing your grandma, the injury. I mean, I would think wrestling was the escape you needed, right? It was
It was. Oh,
it,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it
help take your
was.
mind off those things, and
Yeah. Yeah. Just being on the road and having to deal with airports and rental cars and hotels and getting to the building on time and going over your matches and then finding food, yeah, absolutely. People don't realize what we have to deal with when you're full time.
yeah,
Wrestling the independent shows on the weekends is one thing, but when you're signed to a contract and you're 365 days a year,
yeah,
um, I mean, you only have legitimately 2 days off from work,
yeah,
legitimately 2 days off. And then a lot of those times you only get one because by the time, if you have a bad travel day,
yeah,
you might
yeah,
not get home until midnight.
yeah,
I've left the damn hotel at 5 o'clock in the morning, got on the plane at 6 o'clock in the morning, and didn't get home till midnight.
yeah,
Then I get that whole day off the next day. You got to catch up on everything, pay all your bills, go do, clean your clothes, everything you got to do in one day. Then you got to hit the road again. So,
yeah.
just that busyness, that go, 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 go it helped keep that whole thing on, off my mind.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that got a lot of guys. I got a lot of guys in trouble, cost them their life because when their careers were done, they didn't know how to
What to
stop.
do?
Yeah, what do
Yeah,
you do when I'm used to this schedule, this routine, this new town every night? What do I do when I don't have to do that? And
it's weird. It's weird. It
yeah,
is weird. I mean, but here's the deal. You you got to be a fucking idiot coming into this, no thinking that this is going to last for as long as you think it's going to last.
right. Yep.
Your body just can't do it no more. Your body is going to get to a point. If you make it through 10 years, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
You're done. Your body is taking a toll. I was very blessed. I guess because of the way I worked out and kept my body in condition and stuff. I made 30 years out of this business. So I mean, and I'm what 20, 25 of it was on television,
Mm-hmm.
from TNA to the little bit of stint in WCW to WWE, and then
Mm-hmm.
of course, it's ECW twice, you
Yeah.
know, TNA twice. So yeah, I mean, you gotta stay as in best shape as you can, but you also got to remember how long do you think your body can really do this?
Yep.
And
Right.
here's another thing: how long are you going to look the way you look?
Mm-hmm.
You might be. Back in my day, I had the long hair, the baby blue eyes, the body, the tattoos. All the women loved me, but then I turned 40 and I started looking in the mirror. I'm like, I don't look like I used to.
Yeah, it's a cosmetic business, isn't it?
Well, it is. It's fully
Yeah.
cosmetic.
Yep.
The body and shape was still there. The condition was still there, but the lines were there.
Yep.
The
Mm-hmm.
sagginess in the cheeks were there. The new young kid that just got hired at Jesse Sorensen's, 21 years old. You know, pretty boy. All these young guys. I'm looking about 20 years later. I'm looking around me and I'm like looking at the dressing room and I don't know any of these people,
Yeah.
and they're all brand new. And the writing was on the wall.
Yep.
I saw the writing on the wall about 5 years before I retired.
Yeah.
And the only reason why I lasted those 5 years is because people just kept signing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I at first I said I was going to stop at the age of 40. Well, when I was at 40, I re-signed another deal. So I went to 45, and that's when that deal ended. There was another one that was about ready to sign, and then I was like, yeah, all right, just one more time, but I'm not going to do. I only want to do like maybe 1 or 2 years. So
Yeah.
that's what I did. I did 2 years, and then that was it. I was like, I can't. I'm not physically. I can't do it anymore. Mentally, I can't do it anymore because I don't want to do this anymore. When
Mm-hmm.
you wake up in the morning and you don't have that feeling like you can't wait to get on the road, it's time to stop.
Yep. Absolutely.
I had to drag the last 2 years of my career. I had to drag myself to the shows. I dreaded it. I became an asshole because I didn't want to be there. Um, I was just, it just made you aggravated. You were short tempered with everybody because, it. I wasn't happy. This is
Yeah.
not what was making me happy anymore. And then I was also being used. Every veteran is going to get to that point where he's going to be just a good hand
Mm-hmm.
to get the new guys over, because using you with your name is going to mean a whole lot more getting them over. So you quit winning titles. You're still in the main event, but you're winning no more titles. You're not doing the number, the top promos anymore. They're not giving you all the promo time. They're giving it to the young guy. And then you run an angle with this guy for a month, and for 4 weeks straight on television, he beats you. And then you go to the pay per view and he beats you. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Those are the things that are the writings on the walls for people.
Yeah.
You can look at it and be like, okay, these son of a bitches wanted to sign me to just basically get these young boys over.
Yeah.
And that was the only reason why TNA, they signed me that the first time that I worked for them, and we had such a bad relationship. Um, they had me working AJ Styles, when nobody had ever heard of him. They had me working Christopher Daniels when people had just barely heard of him. Nobody really knew Chris. They just knew him from like Ring of Honor. You know, Low Key, nobody knew the fuck he was until, that little bit in Ring of Honor and then the TNA. Well, when you're wrestling a guy who's a former, you know, ECW World Television Champion and a 5-time NWA World Tag Team Champion, guy with, 10 years, at that time, 10, 11 years under his belt as a veteran, that's what they wanted. They just wanted that, but I wasn't ready for that. I didn't want it at that time. So I left that company and I went to basically back to WWE and actually signed a full deal contract this time, and of course they put the cruiserweight title on me, and they built me up in a nice tag team with Jamie Noble, and they ran me pretty good. And so when I went back to TNA, they were like, "Hey, we want to re-sign you." I'm like, "Okay, well here's the deal. What's I want you to just tell me the straight up truth." Well, by this time I was in my 40s, and I was like, "Okay, this is winding down." So the guys, I mean, they were straight up with me at this time. They were like, "Listen, we're not wanting to put any titles on you. We just want you to help us out." And I'm like, "Okay, well, here's the deal. I don't mind doing that. I wish the first time we could have had a much better relationship if you'd just told me that flat out. Because here's the deal. You want me to do that for you, then you're going to have to pay me more. Just straight up. So this contract that we're about ready to sign, we're going to have to renegotiate this because the price now has gone up." And they did. So I didn't complain. I didn't bitch. I didn't complain. Now, the only time that I did complain the second time was when they weren't paying me.
Yeah.
The paychecks stopped coming in, so Kid Kash quit working. I just sat at home, and they would call me up like, "Hey, where you at? We're waiting on you." "Oh, I'll be there in a few minutes. I'm still at the hotel." "Yeah, no, I'm at my house, laying on the couch. I haven't gotten paid in like 2 months, so yeah, not coming for another damn shot." And then they realized it. So then, of course, I had to, whenever they actually fired me because I wanted my money. So they're like, "Oh, you didn't come to work." And I'm like, "I'm not going to, not until you start paying me and you back pay me what you owe me. And I have a contract with you." And they were like, "Well, we're just going to go ahead and release you." I'm like, "Okay, not a problem. You can release me all you want. Here's the problem. I'm going to sue you." And that's what I had to do. Wound up having to sue them after I left and got my money.
Yeah. That during that last ECW run, when ECW was coming to an end, did you see the signs? Did you know it was coming? Or did you hear Paul, telling, "Hey, I'm gonna do this. I'm negotiating. I'm going to LA. I'm trying this." I mean, where did you fall on all that?
I thought something was going on. I wasn't exactly sure, but you got to understand, I wasn't like a lot of those guys up in ECW because I ran around with Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson for years before I went there.
Yeah.
They taught me not only how to wrestle, but they taught me the business and the signs of the business when the business is about to ready to go bad or go good, And I started seeing things here and there. Paul wasn't making it to the shows, even the TV tapings in Philadelphia. He's doing like other projects, like rollerball and stuff like that. Okay,
Yep.
We're having money problems here. I mean, but here's one thing. I will say this out loud and very proud. Paul never owed me a dime. He paid me all the way up until the company shut the doors. And when I needed a release from him to go to work for WCW, that's when the paycheck stopped. I mean, of course, I'd signed after I'd just getting a check, and I told him, I was like, "Well, the company's buried, and WCW wants me, but they want a hard copy proof." So I had to sign over. Had to send me a little form, and I'd signed over everything is paid in full, and he don't owe me another dime. So I signed that. He sent me the release, and I sent it to WCW, and I was doing Thursday Night Thunder the very same weekend.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, we focus primarily here on your ECW career, but we've talked a little bit. I mean, you had a great career before, after, everything else. I mean, we've touched on a little bit, right? You worked for TNA. You held the X Division title, the tag titles. A couple times with with the future Lance Archer, who's a big time, big star now.
Yeah.
You like we said, you worked for WWE, you held the cruiserweight title. You've worked all over the road or world.
Yeah.
You've even been, fought some MMA fights and everything else.
Yeah.
You've done all these things, but yet, primarily you're still remembered for ECW. Does that ever bother you, or have you kind of
No.
learned to embrace it? That's okay.
I don't even think about it like that. It doesn't bother me at all. It's nice to know that they even remember you.
Yeah, right.
I
Yeah.
mean, one thing about it, look, man, I was never the biggest guy. I never had the greatest physique. I wasn't the greatest wrestler. But the thing about it is, there's so many guys in this business that has been in this business that were very talented, and they did the best that they could with their look or with their talent or wherever, or really with the promoters. I think at the end of the day, we all know that you're only as over as the promoter allows you to be. You know,
Mhm.
but I've seen so many guys that when they did relieve the business, nobody remembered them. And so for me, I'm just happy that people do remember me because I didn't. I mean, I was a standout in the light heavyweight division, but I wasn't a standout like say Rey Mysterio wound up
Mhm.
being, or even Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko, because all of us ran together back in the day,
Yeah.
and we were all in Japan, we were all in Mexico, we were all, traveling the country and other places around the world, traveling together, working together. We were all the same height. Dean Malenko was probably well, no, Ray was the shortest completely, but then it was Dean, then it was Chris, and then it was me, and then it was Eddie, so yeah, I mean, for people to even remember, that I was there is a pleasure, so
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I don't have a problem with it at all.
Yeah. I mean, ECW is to me, it's kind of the right place to be known for because that passion is always there. I mean, you still hear the chants and
Yeah,
everything. I mean, you have so many
still,
territories that were so great, but people don't, it's still, some of these promotions aren't held like ECW is. So,
no,
I mean, I guess, lots of people have been known for less. I mean,
yeah.
you were there, you had it, you were on national TV and pay-per-views
Well,
and everything else. So that's,
well, if there's ever any question, just Google
that's right.
it.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're on
I'm a,
Peacock.
I'm immortalized in in the history of wrestling and Google. So
That's right.
if you
So,
ever want, or YouTube,
yeah,
go to
there you
YouTube,
go.
you can find anything.
Yeah. So, who do you stay in contact with the wrestling? Are you still close with anybody and still friends with really good friends
Uh,
with anybody?
I mean, yeah, I mean, me and Rob Van Dam and I still keep in touch. Lance and I, from time to time, we keep in touch. Jesse Sorensen from time to time. I mean, this is not like a monthly thing or anything like that.
Right,
Probably
right, right.
about once or twice a year. But anybody else? No, not really. Unless they comment on something on Facebook or Instagram or something on a picture or something like that. Whatever.
Yeah.
But other than that, you got you in the wrestling business, you're like a family
Hmm.
because you're always together.
Yeah.
You're together more with your wrestling family than you are your own family. But here's the thing: once all of that is over with, we all go our own way where we came from. You know what I'm saying? Um, I think there's probably only a handful of people in the wrestling business that stayed like absolutely best friends until the day they died.
Yeah.
But people just kind of, they separate and they go their own way and live their own lives and do their own thing, and eventually time takes its toll, and
Hmm.
you just
Yeah.
kind of quit reaching out like you used to.
Yeah. Do you ever still make appearances? Do any conventions or anything like that? Or
Yeah, I do some stuff, conventions, still do some seminars, and from time to time, I'll do just like a personal appearance or something like that, but mostly like appearances, seminars. I don't do any wrestling anymore.
yeah.
Um, just don't care to,
Hmm.
if they did, then my price is kind of high. So, because it's just not worth it for me to get back in the ring unless it's worth it to me.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, how if fans want to keep kind of follow you, keep track if you do any appearances or anything? What's the best way for them to do that?
Just like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Um, that's about it.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah,
Well, I appreciate your time. Like I said, we
yeah,
focus primarily on the ECW stuff, but man, I
yeah.
think we could talk for hours just on your others. I probably could talk for hours just on Ricky Morton alone. And
Oh yeah.
but yeah, but I appreciate your time coming on here and talking with
Thank
us
you.
about your career. I always say that, man, I still think you're underappreciated. I know you've done a lot of things, but I don't think people talk enough about you, man. You're talented, and
Well, thank you.
and
Appreciate that.
and
I
people.
was.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing though. The knowledge is still there, and
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and it's people talk about a lot of people from that era, and sometimes you're forgotten, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful bad way.
No.
I just think you should be maybe you should be spoken in the breath of a few others that you don't get, but it was an
That'd
honor
be
to talk to
cool.
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
Well,
mean, something like that'd be cool, but that's
it is what it is, huh?
it is what it is. I'm not
Yeah,
really. It's nothing that kind of keeps me up at night at all. So
absolutely.
I have a
Yeah.
great life. I mean, when I left, I was already educated before I left.
Yeah.
So I was already in the construction industry before I even became a wrestler. So I just got my degrees and stuff like that while I was wrestling. Did
Mhm.
a bunch of online degrees and stuff, and I immediately left wrestling and immediately went right back into construction as a project manager.
Yeah.
So of a big commercial construct. We're a nationwide construction company. We build high rises and interstate bridges and malls, and we build pretty much anything that can be built. So
Yeah.
uh, it's a great living. I make just as much money in doing that as I did as a wrestler. So
A lot fewer bumps, isn't it?
well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I work in an office, and I don't have to put my body through any more of abuse. And I got beautiful grandkids now.
Yeah.
Spend more time with them. And when I left wrestling, it was weird at first because you're so used to
Hmm.
having to leave. You're so used to wrestling on the weekends while everybody else is barbecuing. And you're so used to being home during the week while everybody else is at work. Um, so it was weird at first,
Yeah.
but once I opened myself up and said, "This is it. This is my life now. I'm not going back. Uh, let's just get back to being a normal person." So that's what I did, and I
Well,
wouldn't trade it for the world right now.
yeah.
I really wouldn't. I mean, I love my time off. I love
Uh-huh.
knowing that on the weekend I could crack open my grill and just start cooking and have some people over if I want to, and
Yeah.
not miss out on any friends. Because there's another thing: your friends in the business are your friends while you're in the business.
Right.
But all those people that you knew before, that were your best friends from high school and all that, well, just like anything else, you lose contact with those guys because you're so busy as a wrestler,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know. And then whenever you retire, you lose contact with all your wrestling buddies. Okay. Um, some because you just lose the contact, or some because they just really didn't like you to begin with, and they don't give a shit if they still talk to you or not.
Yeah.
It's that kind of scenario. But whenever you come back to the real world, you are friendless
Yeah.
for a while. You're like, okay, I live in a different state now. I don't even live in Virginia anymore, so I don't even haven't talked to any of my old school friends for probably 20 years. My wrestling buddies, they're off wrestling somewhere, or they're retired and having living their lives and stuff like that. They don't want to talk on the phone anymore either, like I don't. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I had to like just sit back and kind of chill and think about it, and started calling back my old buddies,
Yeah.
from back in high school days. And it's like, those are your real friends. Those are your real friends. The ones in the wrestling business are friends, but when the light quits shining on you, they quit shining on you.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
that's just a
I
part
imagine
of the
it's wild.
business.
Yeah. Cause I mean, a lot of people, they work in a job for 20, 30 years. When they
Yeah.
retire, they're still living in the same town with these guys that they worked with.
Yeah.
And it just continues on. I mean, your wrestling friends are from, whatever, all over the world. Who knows
Yeah.
where they are? And it's not the same. It's,
Oh yeah. My wrestling buddies, the closest one lives about 5 hours from me.
Yeah, that's
You
wild.
know, so it ain't like we're
Well,
going to get together for a
no.
barbecue anytime soon.
Well, I feel like you've achieved more than some, because I mean, there's so many guys tragically couldn't readjust,
Oh
couldn't
yeah,
couldn't step out. You know, whether they beat a tragic end, whether they're still out there trying to hang on to something from the past or whatever it is.
man.
Just
Well,
couldn't readjust.
and I feel very proud of myself because of that. I mean, listen, I'm not going to lie to anybody. I've answered this same question over and over again for years. Yes, I did drugs just like anybody else did. Okay. But whenever I realized that I was starting to get a problem with them, I quit cold turkey and I've never been back since.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're talking 15 to 20 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't understand um, how some of these guys that even whenever, even if they're still in the business, the thing about these guys is they don't get booked near as much. It's
Mm-hmm.
like once your star starts fading a little bit, your bookings fade bigger than shit.
Yep.
You know, some of these guys that were on TV, whenever they left TV, yeah, they were that fresh new thing fresh off of TV. So they book the shit out of you for like a year, maybe 2 years. They'll book everybody will want you. But then after that's over with, nobody really gives a shit unless you want to come down on your price,
Yep.
unless you want to do a benefit show or something like that, you know. And then that's, I just didn't want to go through that. I seen my friends do it and I was like, you know what? If I go back to doing that, I will be backsliding in my career.
Yeah.
I don't want to end my career this way. So I'll just go ahead and end it now. And
Yep.
that's what I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's such a peculiar business for so many different reasons, but it's
it
like
is
that, man.
a it is a cutthroat business that you can't let your guard down for one fucking minute.
Nope.
And you got to and do that for 30 years.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and then after you do, tell me who your true friends really are.
Yep, absolutely. I mean,
You know,
all those times you worked with injuries and whatever else part of it had to be, preserving your spot. You had
yeah,
to. And
that's why I worked.
yeah, no other job, man. Any other job, any other career, you get hurt, you're
Yeah,
entitled to take your time and have that job waiting for you.
no.
Not,
And if you
and
do
not in
in
wrestling.
wrestling, then somebody's taking your spot by the time you came back.
Yeah. I mean,
The
that's a
show,
whole,
the show goes on, brother. The
yeah,
show goes on.
it's a whole nother discussion of why it's claimed so many lives because of these things. And I mean, it's a whole nother tangent we could go down for
Well, I
hours.
think some of those people that lose their lives and get all hung up, you know what? I honestly, I, I feel for them, but I don't,
Mm-hmm.
because
Yep.
you have every single person in this business has to know how to act.
Yep.
You
Yep.
you know what right and what wrong is. Everybody knows that. So, okay, yeah, you might have to take your pills while you're wrestling to get through the days. I get it. I get it. But
Yep.
if you're not wrestling anymore, why do you still why
Yep.
are you still you're just a drug addict now?
Yep. Yeah.
And I refused. That was one thing I refused to be because I saw it too many times.
Yep.
I mean, the only thing I had to do was look across the damn dressing room with Buff Bagwell or somebody like that,
Yep.
just peeled up off of their fucking head.
Yep.
Somebody that didn't take hardly near the bumps that I took.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
mean, that wasn't their style.
Yep.
The biggest thing they might do is the chart buster and a drop kick. I was getting power bombed through fucking tables out of the ring,
Yeah.
diving off of fucking balconies, and stuff into tables and going through tables, being thrown out of the ring by Mike Awesome, landing on a concrete floor,
Yeah.
diving
Absolutely.
out of the ring and doing moves and people missing me and hitting the concrete floor,
Yep.
So I don't understand how some of these guys get so drugged up that they can't deal with life, and I'm like, I just don't get it. I mean, whenever I look myself in the mirror, that the moment that I knew that enough was enough, I looked in the mirror and I was like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yep.
Why are you doing this to yourself? You're fucking, aging yourself by taking all these damn drugs. Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Suck it up, be a man and tough it out. Take your BC powder and keep moving fucking forward. And that's what I did.
Yeah, well, that's man. Whew, I guess that's a place to wrap it.
Yeah.
it's a it's a I mean, like I said, I'm glad you come out on the other side. You're got a it's like a whole, whatever you want to call it, a second chapter in your life
Yeah.
beyond wrestling. And it's maybe obviously for you it's I mean, I think you sound like it's exceeded your wrestling life, that you're even happier for it. But as we can tell from what we talked, you got a lot of good memories from wrestling. And
I didn't do the best business in the world, but I didn't do the worst business in the world, you know, and I look at it like I'm very happy and content with where my career went. I'm a guy from Waynesboro, Virginia. Nobody's ever heard of that town. I'm not a second or a third generation wrestler. This kind of just dropped in my lap one day, and I just decided that I would rather do that than be a pipe welder.
yep.
So I had to put
Well,
everything I had into it to make something of it,
yeah.
and that's exactly what I did. I mean,
Yeah. Well, you clearly made the most of your opportunities. Like we talked about, whether it's working through injuries or whatever
yeah,
it is. I mean, you took the ball and ran with it, and came out better on the other side. And
absolutely.
yeah, and like I said, I appreciate your time and talking to us, and
No
talking
worries.
with us, and talking about your career. And there's so much more. I mean, we did, like I said, we didn't even touch on your WWE time and this and
No,
that, because we focus on the ECW. But man, there's so much more to your career. But we keep it ECW based on the show, so yeah, it is what it is. But David, we appreciate your time and appreciate you coming on and talking to us.
absolutely, man. Call me anytime.
Support This Is Extreme and buy the This Is Extreme shirt. Show the world that you are part of the revolution and that you support our podcast and the history of ECW. Go to tinyurl.com/ECW pod shirt and buy yours today. All right, ECW fans, welcome back to This Is Extreme. I am Dave Dynasty, your host. Thanks to Kid Kash, David Kash, for coming on and giving us that interview. Again, great talking to him, and lots of stories. A fun guy to talk to. And we'll have David back on in the future, because he has a lot more he can talk about. And I'd like to have him on my other podcast, Wrestling Nostalgia, to talk about some of his non-ECW career. Because again, there's a lot to talk about there. The guy's done a lot, accomplished a lot. And like I said in the interview, I think he's an underappreciated talent in wrestling. So I'd like to maybe help open a few more eyes, man. And so go out there and watch some Kid Kash stuff, man. He's a great worker, great guy, great personality, and just a lot of fun, and a positive attribute to the wrestling business. Make sure you subscribe to us on whatever podcast platform you're listening to. And if the option is there, give us a rating and review. It helps us in the algorithms. Follow us on social media. Like I said, we're on X still. I just can't post anything at the moment, but you can follow us there, Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at ECW Pod. Given my perils with X, maybe you should make sure you follow us on all those so that you don't miss anything at all. You can follow me personally on X at the Dave Dynasty. That account's still open and active. And the best way to financially support the show is to buy one of our shirts. Go to tinyurl.com/ECW Pod shirt. And here you go. That's the best way. And in 2 weeks, we'll have another podcast. So watch those social media outlets for an announcement on who that guest will be. I've already got lots of things brewing, some things scheduled, some really, really cool stuff that you're going to love to hear and see. So in 2 weeks, new episode. But until then, wherever you go, whatever you do, be good, be safe, and always keep it extreme.